Have you ever noticed how some foods that everyone swears are good for you don't always make you feel your best? You eat them expecting energy or vitality, but instead you feel sluggish, heavy, or even less confident in your body. For men over 60, this can show up in some very personal ways you might not talk about openly, but that deeply affect your sense of manhood. And here's the surprising truth. Many so-called healthy foods could actually be working against you when it comes to your erections. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today in this video. Men over 60 stop eating these good foods to get better erection. I remember one of my longtime patients, Harold. He's 72, full of life, and proud of how he takes care of himself. He was the type who always read the latest health magazines, trying every new superfood he came across. Kale smoothies, soy milk, whole wheat bread, the works. But he came into my office one day looking frustrated. He said, "Doc, I'm doing everything right, but I feel weaker down there. What gives?" Harold's story is not unusual, and maybe you can relate. Now, before we dive deeper, let me introduce myself for those of you who are new here. My name is Dr. Nolan Easton. I've been working in men's health for more than 30 years, helping thousands of men over 60 regain not just their physical strength, but their confidence and vitality too. My goal is simple: to give you the straight truth in plain language so you can live with more energy, better performance, and yes, better erections. The problem is that many men like Harold are following general advice that doesn't take into account how a man's body changes with age. What might be good for a younger man, or in theory, can actually hurt your hormone balance, blood flow, and performance once you're in your 60s and beyond. That's why it's so important to know which foods are secretly sabotaging you, so you can make small, smart changes that restore your natural strength. Imagine being able to sit across from your partner again, not feeling anxious but confident. That's the benefit of paying attention to what we're discussing today. And here's the first thing I want you to know. Food has a direct connection to blood flow. Erections depend on healthy circulation, and the foods you put on your plate can either open up your arteries or quietly clog them. Harold thought he was doing himself a favor with whole grain cereal every morning, but the processed grains were spiking his blood sugar, raising inflammation, and over time making his circulation worse. Once he swapped those for slow-digesting, nutrient-rich foods, his body responded. Within a few weeks, he told me, "Doc, I feel like myself again." Now, I want to pause here and ask you something. If what I'm saying resonates, if you've ever wondered whether your diet is secretly working against your health, go ahead and tap that like button, subscribe, and click the little bell. And do me a favor, type a simple yes or no in the comments below. I actually go through those comments because they help me understand what's hitting home with you, and that way I can keep tailoring this advice to what you really need. Let's go back to Harold for a moment, because his story teaches us something powerful. Beyond the processed grains, he was also relying heavily on soy products. Now, soy is marketed as a heart-healthy protein, but for men over 60, it can interfere with testosterone levels. That's a hormone you still need even in your later years for strong erections, muscle strength, and energy. Harold didn't realize that his daily soy milk was essentially dampening his natural hormone balance. When he switched to alternatives that supported rather than blocked his testosterone, he started to feel stronger. He even said, with a little grin, "My wife noticed too." And that brings me to the bigger picture. Men over 60 often don't need more trendy health foods, they need the right foods that fit their body's stage of life. The trick is to separate marketing myths from what actually supports circulation and hormones. Because when you do, your body rewards you with better energy, better sleep, and yes, better performance. Here's what I want you to take away so far. If you've been eating all the right things, but still struggling with weak or inconsistent erections, it's not your fault. You've likely been misled by advice that wasn't designed for men in their 60s, 70s, or beyond. The good news is that your body is incredibly responsive. Even small changes can turn things around in just weeks, as Harold experienced. And let me reassure you, this isn't about giving up food altogether or living in deprivation. It's about knowing which so-called good foods are actually harming you and replacing them with better choices that support your body as it is today. Think of it as working with your body instead of against it. When Harold first came to see me, he carried himself like a man who had lost a piece of his identity. He was still active. He golfed twice a week, went for walks, and even did light weightlifting at his local gym. But inside, he was frustrated. "I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to," he told me, "but my body isn't responding. It feels like I'm betraying myself." That honesty struck me, because so many men in their 60s and 70s feel the same way, but don't talk about it. They quietly assume it's just old age. Yet in Harold's case, the problem wasn't his effort. It was the food choices he thought were helping. One of the biggest culprits we uncovered was his daily reliance on foods high in hidden sugars. Now, Harold didn't think of himself as a sugar eater. He wasn't sitting down with donuts or candy bars, but he loved his healthy fruit yogurt in the mornings, and he snacked on granola bars throughout the day. Those are marketed as nutritious, yet they're loaded with added sugars that spike insulin and damage blood vessels. Over time, that kind of repeated stress on the arteries makes it harder for blood to flow freely, and without healthy blood flow, erections suffer. When I explained this to Harold, he leaned back and shook his head, saying, "So all this time, I thought I was doing myself a favor." The truth is, many men are caught in this same trap. Foods labeled low-fat, whole grain, or fortified often come with hidden downsides. After 60, your metabolism doesn't handle these spikes the way it used to. Instead of fueling you, they leave you drained, inflamed, and in the most private way, less capable. The good news is that once you understand how these foods affect you, you can make small, steady shifts that restore balance. I've seen men regain energy and intimacy just by removing these sneaky offenders from their routine. And that's why I'm taking the time to share this message. If you've ever sat across from your partner and felt disappointed in your body, I want you to know you're not broken. You simply need the right adjustments. Men over 60 don't need a fad diet or a strict regimen. They need clarity, simple swaps, and foods that work with their body's current needs. Imagine what it would feel like to wake up and know that your energy and manhood are supported by what you put on your plate. That's what this video is here to give you. Now, I want to pause again and ask you to engage with me here. If you've ever been surprised to learn that a healthy food might actually be hurting you, let me know in the comments. Just a yes or a no is enough. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next time we dive into topics like this. Your feedback not only helps me guide you, it also helps other men see that they're not alone in this journey. Getting back to Harold, after we talked about hidden sugars, I asked him to start keeping track of what he ate. Not to count calories, but simply to notice patterns. Within a week, he realized just how often he reached for those supposedly healthy snacks. The yogurt, the granola bars, even his whole wheat crackers. All of them were spiking his blood sugar and leaving him feeling sluggish. By replacing them with whole foods, simple things like eggs, nuts, and fresh vegetables, he began to notice a difference. His energy stopped crashing in the afternoon. He told me his walks felt easier and he didn't feel that constant brain fog. And most importantly, his private confidence slowly began to return. Another food Harold leaned on heavily was red wine. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to tell you that enjoying a glass of wine is bad, but Harold believed that drinking a couple of glasses every evening was good for his heart because he had read about antioxidants in wine. For men over 60, though, too much alcohol, even the so-called healthy kind, can lower testosterone, weaken circulation, and blunt desire. Once Harold cut back to an occasional glass rather than a nightly habit, he noticed a remarkable change. His sleep deepened, his morning energy improved, and his intimacy no longer felt like a chore. This is why I emphasize balance, not extremes. I don't want you to feel deprived or fearful of food. What I want is for you to see clearly how certain choices, even ones labeled good, can quietly erode your vitality over time. When you replace them with options that nurture your body, it's like turning the lights back on in a dim room. That's how Harold described it to me. "Doc, it feels like someone flipped a switch inside me." What made me happiest was seeing how these changes affected his relationship. He and his wife had grown distant in that area of life, and it weighed on both of them. But as Harold's body responded to his new way of eating, That spark slowly reignited. He came into my office one day with a big smile and said, "You weren't kidding. She's happier, I'm happier, we both feel like we've gotten something back that we thought was gone." That's why I keep saying this isn't just about food. It's about what food gives you: connection, energy, and the chance to feel fully alive again. You deserve that, no matter your age. When Harold and I sat down for his follow-up visit, the first thing I noticed wasn't his lab results or his blood pressure. It was his expression. He walked into the room lighter, shoulders back, and with a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. He said, "Doc, I feel like my body is finally working with me instead of against me." That statement is powerful because it shows just how much of a difference these subtle shifts in food can make, not just physically, but emotionally. For many men over 60, that feeling of control and confidence is what they miss the most. By this point, Harold had already cut out the hidden sugars and scaled back on his nightly wine. But there was another category of food we needed to address, something a lot of men don't realize is quietly draining their vitality. Harold had always believed that eating lots of soy was good for his heart. He poured soy milk on his cereal, had tofu in his stir-fries, and even used soy protein powder. What he didn't know was that soy contains plant compounds that can mimic estrogen in the body. For younger men, the effects may not be as noticeable, but for men over 60, when testosterone is already lower, soy can tip the balance further in the wrong direction. When I explained this, Harold's eyes widened. "You mean all this time I've been blocking my own hormones?" he asked. And in a way, yes. His daily soy habit was interfering with the very thing he needed for strong erections and energy: healthy testosterone levels. Once he reduced the soy and replaced it with proteins like eggs, fish, and lean meats, the changes were dramatic. Within weeks, he reported stronger energy, better muscle tone, and more frequent morning erections, something he hadn't experienced in years. This is a reminder of a bigger truth. As men age, the body becomes more sensitive to hormonal shifts. Foods that may have seemed harmless in the past can have outsized effects now. That's why it's so important for men over 60 to eat in a way that supports hormones instead of fighting them. Testosterone isn't just about intimacy, it's about strength, mood, focus, and overall vitality. Protecting it means protecting your quality of life. I often tell my patients that erections are like the body's report card. They reflect the state of your blood flow, your hormones, and your overall health. If you're struggling in that area, it's not just about the bedroom, it's your body's way of asking for help. The beauty is that by responding to these signals, by giving your body the right fuel, you not only improve performance, but you also protect your heart, your brain, and your energy. Now, let me pause here and invite you to connect with me again. If you've ever wondered whether your diet might be lowering your testosterone, leave me a yes or no in the comments. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and tap the little bell so you'll know whenever I share new advice. I read through your comments, and they help me craft these conversations to meet your needs directly. Back to Harold. There was one more surprising food that was holding him back: so-called heart-healthy vegetable oils. Like many men, he had switched to margarine and vegetable oils years ago, believing that they were better for his heart than butter. But here's what most don't realize. Many of these oils are high in omega-6 fats, which, when eaten in excess, increase inflammation in the body. And inflammation is the enemy of erections. It damages blood vessels, stiffens arteries, and slows down the very circulation you rely on for firmness and stamina. Once Harold swapped out those oils for healthier fats, like olive oil, avocados, and nuts, he noticed not only better digestion, but also a renewed sense of energy. In fact, he told me something I'll never forget. "Doc, I didn't realize how foggy I had been feeling until the fog lifted." That's how it works sometimes. You don't always know how much you've lost until you feel what it's like to have it back. And I want you to imagine that for yourself. Picture waking up and feeling rested, your body strong, your mind clear, and knowing that when the moment comes with your partner, you can trust your body to respond. That's not wishful thinking. It's the natural outcome of giving your body what it truly needs and avoiding the foods that drag it down. When Harold returned a few months after we first began working on his diet, I barely recognized the man sitting in front of me. He looked younger, not because of any miracle cream or supplement, but because his energy was radiating from within. His handshake was firm, his posture upright, and his eyes had that spark again. "Doc," he said, smiling wide, "I feel like I've been given a second chance." His story is one I share often because it shows how much power men over 60 still have over their health and vitality when they make the right choices. By removing the foods that seemed good on the surface, hidden sugars, nightly wine, soy products, and inflammatory oils, Harold didn't just improve his erections, he improved his life. His walks became easier, his mood steadier, his confidence stronger, and his connection with his wife deeper. What began as a conversation about diet became a transformation of his entire well-being. That's the part I want you to remember. This isn't just about food. It's about reclaiming the best parts of yourself, the ones you thought might be gone forever. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not telling you to fear every bite you eat or to live in restriction. That's not living. What I am telling you is that the foods you choose matter, especially now in this stage of life. Your body has been through decades of hard work. It deserves care, respect, and the right kind of fuel. When you give it that, your body will reward you with energy, clarity, and yes, stronger erections that remind you of the man you've always been. I've spent over 30 years as a men's health specialist, and if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Men are far stronger than they realize, but sometimes all it takes is a little guidance to unlock that strength again. Harold isn't an exception. He's proof. Proof that with the right steps, every man can experience meaningful improvements no matter his age. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping you. If you've been struggling, if you've been frustrated, if you've been thinking it's too late, I want you to hear this clearly. It's not. Your body is resilient. Your spirit is strong. And you have the power to make choices today that will change the way you feel tomorrow. Think about Harold. He didn't need a complicated plan. He needed clarity. He needed to let go of foods that were quietly sabotaging him and embrace foods that supported his body's needs. That's it. And that's something you can do too. So let me ask you one last time. Does this message resonate with you? If so, hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss these important conversations. And please, type a simple yes or no in the comments. I read them and I take them to heart because they tell me what matters most to you. Your feedback helps me shape these talks so together we can keep unlocking the truth about men's health after 60. I'll leave you with this thought. Erections are not just about intimacy. They're a reflection of life itself. They show you how well your blood is flowing, how balanced your hormones are, and how much energy your body has to give. When you nourish your body the right way, you don't just get stronger erections, you get stronger living.